Oklahoma City was hit by severe weather over the weekend. Take a look at that. Thunderstorms in the area brought high winds and torrential downpours to the city, causing several streets to flood. Some locations saw more than 6 inches of rain in less than 2 hours. You can see some of these clips. Trucks and cars ran into some issues there. Never try to drive through water.
Yeah, not good. And severe weather moved through parts of Pennsylvania today and caused major flooding there. The heavy rain washed out part of Route 220, which remains shut down from Muncie Valley to Hughesville. Officials are telling people not to drive in these types of conditions.
Yeah, never good, we always say. Turn around.
No, and we had a little flooding last weekend, last week. Hopefully we don't see that this week, but we will keep an eye on it, especially Wednesday. That could end up being a first alert day as our next chance of strong to severe storms kind of rolls in. Looks good tomorrow, and then we're kind of focusing in on that cooler air for the end of the week and weekend. The rain chances beyond Wednesday don't look to be all that impressive, so there will be time to get outside and enjoy the cooler air, which I don't think too many people are going to complain about. It's been kind of a hot and humid stretch, Mark.
Yeah, it'll be nice to have that little bit of a break, especially opening the windows
at
night.